Before we get into today's game, I want to talk about the sponsors for my channel. Card Conduit is the best way to sell your unused magic cards. Whether you've got a box of unsorted bulk, or a complete and alphabetized set, there's a great option for everyone. With a payout averaging 19% better than using any one buy list, and that's after fees are applied, you can rest assured you'll get the best bang for your buck. If you're a skeptic like me, their easy customer service and detailed reports make the whole interaction transparent and safe. And if you use the affiliate link in the description below, or the promo code MTGMUDSTA, you'll save 10% off their fees. And 401 Games, Canada's one-stop shop for trading cards, board games, and hobby supplies. Not to mention an easy-to-use and great online buy list. And if you use the promo code MTGMUDSTA, your first purchase of MTG Sealed and Singles will be 5% off. And Dragon Shield, the strongest sleeves for your strongest deck. So be sure to use the code MUDSTA or the affiliate link down below to save 5% on your next order. Before we get into today's game, I just want to give a huge thank you to Wizards of the Coast. They invited me to become part of their ambassador program for Duskmourn. They sent me the Precons and a bit of sealed product to be able to help tweak and upgrade the decks and build other decks, and allowed me to release it early, which is fantastic. I'm super excited to do this, and I hope to do it more in the future. If you're interested at all at some of these new cards, a card gallery, where to pick it up, I've included a super handy link down below, so be sure to check it out. Hey gang, and welcome to a very exciting gameplay. With Maximus, Matt, and Mathieu joining me, I apparently really like M names. In today's game, Maximus is playing Zimone, Mystery Unraveler, and it's focused on morph/manifest creatures. He keeps an Island, Rampant Growth, Greater Tanuki, Counterspell, Growth Spiral, Growing Dread, and a Tangled Isle. Max is playing the Valgavoth Harrower of Souls deck, which wants to ping damage and cause pain, keeping Temple the False God, Mountain, Graven Cairns, Massacre Girl, Mindstone, Feed the Swarm, and Seance Board. Mathieu is playing Aminatou Veil Piercer, which is about miracles and enchantments, keeping Island, Terramorphic Expanse, Swamp, Demir Aqueduct, Read the Bones, Tainted Plains, and a Mesa Enchantress. Last but not least, I am playing Winter Cynical Opportunist, and I'm focused on milling and Graveyard Delirium based spells. I've got Grim Backwoods, Tainted Wood, Golgari Signet, Soul Ring, Mindstone, Hornet Queen, and Inscription of Abundance. Maximus wins the die roll and starts us off. He plays a tapped Temple of Mystery, scrying 1. Mathieu just plays a Terramorphic Expanse. I play a Tainted Wood and tap it for a Soul Ring, and then tap the Soul Ring for a Mind Stone. Max has a Mountain, and he passes, with Mathieu sacrificing his Expanse at the end of turn to go and find an Island. Maximus plays an Island, and pays 2 for a Rampant Growth, passing while searching. Mathieu draws, and plays an Obscura Storefront, sacrificing it as it comes in, gaining 1 life, and goes to find a Swamp. My turn has me playing a Forest, and I tap the Soul Ring for a Golgari Signet. I then tap out, casting Winter Cynical Opportunist, and pass to Max. Max plays a Graven Cairns, and then pays enough for a Seance Board, and passes to Maximus. Maximus just plays a tapped Tangle Isle. Mathieu has a Plains for turn, and he pays 3 for Read the Bones, scrying 2, losing 2, and drawing 2. He then discards down to 7 as he passes to me. I play my own Terramorphic Expanse, sacrificing it to find a tapped Swamp. Going to combat, Winter goes at Maximus, and I mill my top 3. Before damage, Maximus flashes out Growing Dread, and he manifests Dread as it comes in, keeping 1 card as a manifest and binning his other one. He then decides to just take the 2, and I move through my phases to my end step. I now have Delirium active, and I exile 4 card types from my graveyard, and put to field a Haywire Might with a finality counter onto it, and pass to Max. Max plays everyone's favorite turn 3 land, a Temple of the False God. He then casts Mindstone and passes. Maximus has a Forest return, and he goes at me with a manifest creature. I declare no blocks, and before damage, Maximus turns face up what turns out to be a Trigon Predator. It gets a +1/+1 counter because of Growing Dread, and it then hits me for 3. With the on damage trigger, he targets my Soul Ring. I respond to this, and I cast and kick an Inscription of Abundance, picking all modes, and try to pump my commander, gain some life, and fight the Predator. Maximus has a hard no for it though, with a counterspell. The Soul Ring is then destroyed. With nothing else, he passes. Mathieu has a Tainted Field for turn, and then just casts his commander with Aminatou, Veil Piercer, and he passes to me after that. I've got a Swamp, and this time around go with Winter at the other max. I mill my top 3 and deal 2. I then just move through my phases again and go to my end step. I get my Delirium trigger, excelling 4 card types amongst them, and I get to keep a Demolisher spawn with a Finality counter onto it, and I pass to Max. Max draws and plays a Swamp. He's then able to tap 4 mana for his commander, Valgavoth, Harrower of Souls, and he passes to Maximus. Maximus draws and then goes straight to combat. He swings at me again, dealing 3, and this time the Trigon Predator blows up the spawn. In his second main phase, he then casts Wilderness Reclamation, and passes, untapping his lands during his end step. Mathieu surveils 2 on his upkeep thanks to Aminatou, and then Miracles Sigil the Empty Throne for reduced cost. He then moves to his main phase, plays an island for turn, and passes to me. I play my actually usable Temple of the False God for turn, and then cast a Carrion Grub, which, as it enters, mills me for 4. Going to combat, I go at Maximus, milling 3 with Winter again. Before moving to blocks, Maximus casts Cackling Counterpart, and makes a token copy of the Trigon Predator. He then realizes that Winter has Death Touch, and decides to just take the 2 again. Moving to my end step, I exile 4 card types from amongst my graveyard, and this time bring out a Vile Mutilator. As it comes in, each opponent has to sacrifice a non-token enchantment, and then a non-token creature. Once they do if they can, I pass to Max. Max draws and just pays 4 mana for a Falconwrath Noble, and then passes to Maximus. Maximus's main phase has him casting Zimone, and with her on the stack, I sacrifice my Might to exile the Wilderness Reclamation. Zimone then resolves, and Maximus moves to combat, going at me again with the Trigon token. I take the hit, and he blows up my Golgari Signet, and then passes turn. Mathieu has a Caves of Koilos for turn, and then uses Time Wipe to wipe the board. 5 creatures die, triggering the Noble 5 times, with Max draining Maximus for 3 and me for 2. Mathieu then casts a Portent, and moving to his end step, Max gains a counter on his Seance board. Mathieu draws on my upkeep from Portent, and I draw and then play a Grim Backwoods. I once more recast Winter again, and then pass to Max, not getting an Incept trigger because I don't have Delirium. Max's turn has him drawing and casting a Rampaging Ferocidon. He passes to Maximus after that. Maximus's turn has him recasting Zimone in his main phase, and he takes 1 from the Ferocidon as she enters. He then plays a Forest. This gets him a Manifest Dread trigger, and he looks at his top 2. He bins 1 and manifests the other, losing another 1 from the Ferocidon, and then passing turn. Mathieu plays a Temple of Silence, scrying 1 as it comes in tapped. He then casts Theros All-Star Prognostic Sphinx, losing 1 as it comes in, and then passing. My turn has me casting Stitcher's Supplier, and I lose 1 as it comes in, and then mill my top 3. Going to combat, I swing Winter at Max, milling 3 cards. He doesn't block, and takes the 2. Going to my end step, I get a trigger because I have Delirium, exiling 4 card types to bring back Giant Adaphage with a Finality counter onto it, and pass to Max. Max draws and goes straight to Punchies, going at Mathieu with the Ferocidon. Mathieu takes the hit, and in Max's second main phase, he pays the spectacle cost of Light Up the Stage, and exiles his top 2. He plays a Mountain for turn from them, and then casts the other card, which is the Lord of Pain. Max then casts a Bloodseeker, and passes to Maximus. Maximus plays a Forest for turn and gets his first Zimone trigger, and manifests Dread. He bins 1 of the top 2 and manifests the other, taking 2 from both Zimone and the manifest coming in. Going to combat, he swings a manifest creature at Max. Before damage, Maximus casts Growth Spiral, drawing a card, but whiffing on the extra land, and Max gets a Lord of Pain trigger, dealing 2 to Mathieu, and then takes 2 himself. In his second main phase, Maximus then channels Greater Tanuki, going to find an island. This gets him his second Zimone trigger, and he turns faced up a manifest card, which turns out to be a Whisperwood Elemental. Mathieu pays 3 for a Mesa Enchantress in his main phase, and the Lord of Pain deals 3 to me. Mathieu then loses 2 as she comes in. He plays a tapped Demir Aqueduct, bouncing a land back to hand, and then ships the turn to me. During his end step, I sacrifice my Stitcher's Supplier to the Grim Backwoods. With it dying, I mill 3, and then draw a card as the ability resolves. I draw for turn, playing Exotic Orchard. Winter then goes at Max again, and the Adaphage goes at Mathieu. I mill my top 3, but before moving to damage, Mathieu casts Utter End and exiles the Adaphage. This gets Max a Lord of the Pain trigger, and he deals 4 to Maximus. Max then takes 2 commander damage. In my second main phase, I cast Ob Nixilis Reignited, which has the Lord of Pain dealing 5 to Mathieu. I then downtick the Walker to do the table a solid, and take out Lord of the Pain. Going to my end step, Winter triggers, and I exile 4 card types to bring back Titania, Nature's Force, with a finality counter on her, and take 2 as she comes in. Max draws and plays a Tainted Peak. He then goes at Ob Nixilis with the Ferocidon. He gets taken out, and in his second main phase, Max casts Valgavoth, taking 1 from the Ferocidon as it comes in. He then plays a Mayhem Devil and takes another 1. Max then passes, and during his end step, Maximus activates Multani from his graveyard, returning some lands to hand, and gets to put the elemental from graveyard to hand. Maximus taps 6 for AC, losing 2 as it comes in, and this triggers Valgavoth once, putting a +1/+1 counter onto it, and drawing Max a card. Maximus then plays an island, manifesting Dread, and taking 2 again. He then plays a Forest Return, and the second Zimone trigger happens, flipping up a manifest card, which is revealed to be an island. Maximus then casts a Soul Ring, and then pays 5 for an Aethergale. He targets Titania, Max's Seeker, Ferocidon, Valgavoth, and the Sphinx. We forget about the ward right now, but we do catch it, and Mathieu responds to the spell, discarding a card to give the Sphinx hexproof. Going to combat, the Whisperwood then goes at Max, a Manifest goes at Matt, and Zimone goes at me, and we all take the hit. During his end step, Maximus then manifests a card from the Whisperwood, and we move to Mathieu's turn. Mathieu taps 6 for Shark Typhoon, and draws from casting an enchantment. He then goes at Maximus, scrying 3 and dealing 3, and passing after that. My turn has me looking through my yard, and I then recast Titania from hand. I then play a Forest from my graveyard, and make a 5/3 elemental token. I then cast Suspicious Bookcase, and once it resolves, move to combat. This time around I swing Winter at Maximus, and I mill my top 3. He then decides to block with AC to try and take some heat off of himself because of how good his engine is going, and I then pass turn after the Legendary's trade. Max brings back Valgavoth in his main phase, and he then drops the Bloodseeker again. With the Vampire on the stack, Mathieu casts Telling Time, and gets a 2/2 Flying Shark, and then resolves the spell before the Seeker does. Max then casts Lightning Greaves, and equips them onto his commander. He decides against swinging though, and just passes after that. Maximus's main phase has him casting a Shriekwood Devourer, and he takes 1 as it comes in. This also triggers Valgavoth, giving Max a card and his commander a +1/+1 counter. Maximus then goes to combat, the Whisperwood goes at Mathieu, and a Manifest goes at Max. This allows him to untap 4 lands because of the Devourer's trigger, and before moving to blocks, Mathieu casts Brainstorm. This makes him a 1/1 Flying Shark token, and he takes 1 from the Bloodseeker. He then blocks with the Shark, and Max just takes 2. Maximus's second main phase then has him casting They Came From the Pipes, and he gets to manifest Dread twice. He then takes 2 as they come in, plus draws 2 cards from the enchantment, seeing them come in as well. Maximus then plays a land for turn, and he gets to manifest Dread again from Zimone, taking 1 and drawing another card from They Came from the Pipes. He then passes to Mathieu. Mathieu's got an island for turn, and he goes to combat, swinging the Sphinx at Maximus again. He scries 3 and deals 3. In his second main phase, he then casts Sphere of Safety, drawing a card from the Enchantress, and making a 5/5 flying shark token. As the shark comes in, he takes 1 from the Bloodseeker, which triggers Valgavoth again. Mathieu then pays 3 for a monologue tax, drawing another card and making a 3/3 flying shark token, plus takes another 1. My main phase has me casting Solemn Simulacrum, and I take 1 as it comes in, which gives Max a draw and his commander a +1/+1 counter. I then go and find a basic to the field, and it's a forest, making me another 5/3 elemental token, and losing another 1. I then activate the bookcase, making Titania unblockable, and hit Max for 6, and pass. Max has an Exotic Orchard for turn, and he goes to combat. He hits me with his commander for 7, and once that's done, in his second main phase, he casts and resolves a Massacre Girl. With her on the stack, Maximus pays 5 to flip up Eudora, which will make things very complicated. I'm going to fast forward most of this part, but basically it all boils down to there's a lot of triggers from Massacre Girl and a lot of stuff with the Eudora. The too long didn't read breakdown of this is that some creatures die before Zimone dies, which come back as forests, which triggers Zimone, which allows Maximus to turn them face up. These creatures will also die to Massacre Girl, meaning even more -1/-1 triggers. And Maximus reveals that one of the creatures is a Worldspine Worm. It's a 15/15, which still actually dies, and Max does get to make 3 5/5 worm tokens. We think about it for a little bit and do work out that the worms survive, but somehow in all of this math, I somehow forget that the bookcase is a creature and don't kill it, but thankfully Max catches it later on. Once all that crazy board wipe stuff is done, Max then casts an Arcane Signet, which gives Mathieu a treasure token from the monologue tax. Max then casts a Rampaging Ferocodon again, and he passes to Maximus. Maximus untaps and draws. He has a ton of lands thanks to his face-down forests, and he then delves away some cards to cast Dig Through Time, keeping his 2 best cards from his top 7. Going to combat, he swings a worm apiece at each opponent, and we all take 5. In his second main phase, Max then casts Multani, losing 1 as it comes in. He then casts Kefnet, losing another 1 as the god comes in, with Mathieu making a treasure token. Mathieu draws for turn, and hard casts a Terminus, having us bottom any creature on the board. In response, Maximus activates Kefnet, drawing a card and returning one of his face-down forests to hand. He then does it again, and returns another face-down forest to hand again. Once that's done, Mathieu casts Redress Fate, which returns to field his Sigil of the Empty Throne and makes him a shark token, and he passes. I play a Temple of Malady, scrying 1. I then recast Winter, and I go to my end step. This is where Max points out my misplay with the bookcase, and I put to my graveyard since it would have died to Massacre Girl. I then exile 4 card types to bring out the Whip of Erebos with a finality counter, and pass to Max. Max pays 7 mana for Karavek the Merciless, and then drops Karavek's favorite piece of equipment with a Basilisk Collar. He equips Karavek with the collar, and then the greaves, and he goes to combat. He corrects his mistake from the last turn, and takes Maximus out with Karavek, and gains 5 life. With nothing else, he passes. Matt's turn has him drawing, and then attacking Max with a shark token. He then recasts Aminatou again, and this has Max's Karavek take out Winter, and gain him some life. Mathieu then plays an Orzhov Basilica, bouncing a land back to hand, and passing to me. I draw and go through my graveyard. I then activate the whip, exiling old Stick Fingers from my graveyard, and give it haste. I then smash Max in the face for 11, and gain 11. In my second main phase, I then activate the Grim Backwoods, sacrificing old Stick Fingers, and drawing a card and exiling it. Max draws and casts Thought Vessel in his main phase. He then plays a Theater of Horrors, and then a Stormfist Crusader. He's not done though, playing a Nightshade Harvester, and then goes to combat. He hits me with Karavek, dealing 5 and gaining 5, and then passes turn. Metchia's upkeep has him surveilling 2, and he bins 1 and puts 1 on top. He miracles the Master of Keys as he draws it, and puts the reduced 4 into the X. This gets him an Angel token from the sigil seen in enchantment being cast, and Karavik then deals 7 and gains 7 to max. The Master then mills Metchia for 8 cards, and he plays a land, losing 1 to the Nightshade. He then swings the Shark token at max in the air, and passes after it connects. I look through my graveyard on my turn, and play a land, and take 1 to the Harvester, with it getting another +1/+1 counter. I then activate the whip, bringing back Noxious Gearhulk, which destroys Max's Harvester and gains me some life. I then swing the Gearhulk at max, dealing 5 and gaining 5. I then once more use the Grim Backwoods to sacrifice the whipped creature, drawing a card and exiling it. Max's upkeep has the table drawing a card and losing 1 life to the Crusader. He then exiles a Blood Artist to the Theater trigger. Max then plays a Temple of Malice, scrying 1. We then see Valgavoth coming in, and once he resolves, Max gives him the Greaves. Going to combat, both creatures go at me, and before blocks, I cast Arachnogenesis. Max has the Karavik trigger dealing 3 to Matt, and he gains 3 as well. My spell then resolves, and I make 2 spider tokens, and then block with my spiders. I also fog the damage not dealt by spiders, so I gain 2 from blocking with them. Max's second main phase then has him casting the Blood Artist. And once that's out, he uses Feed the Swarm to take out 1 of my spider tokens. With it dying, he gets a Blood Artist trigger and drains Metchia for the last point of life, taking him out. I draw, and my main phase has me casting Convert to Slime, taking 5 from Karavik, which has Max gaining 5. I target the Collar, Valgavoth, and the Theater, which all get destroyed and make an 8/8 Slime token, not to mention that Max drains me for 1 with Blood Artist from Valgavoth dying. I then activate my whip, bringing back Titania. Going to combat, I swing her at max for 6 and gain 6. I then move to my second main phase, and I cast a Cemetery Tampering and take 3 from Karavik. I then hide away 1 of my top 5 cards and pass turn. Max's upkeep has us both drawing a card and losing a life, and Max then draws for turn. He plays out a Brash Taunter and then looks at my graveyard. He moves the Greaves onto the Taunter, and then cracks his Mind Stone to draw a card. Once that's done, he casts Felwar Stone and passes to me. I mill 3 cards on my upkeep to the Tampering trigger, but decide against casting my Hideaway card. I do cast a Whispersoul Cloak though in my main phase, and take 3 from Karavik. I gear it up onto the Ooze, and swing it at max, dealing 8 and gaining 8. In my second main phase, I then use the Whip to bring back Stitcher's Supplier, milling 3 as it comes in. I then move to my end step and exile it. During my end step, Max uses the Brash Taunter to fight Karavik, which has the Taunter dealing 5 to my face. Max's upkeep has us each losing 1 and drawing a card, and he then draws for turn. He blitzes out a Star Athlete, and then gives Karavik back the Greaves. Going to combat, he swings his creatures that have power at me, and the Athlete trigger targets my whip. I don't want to take 5, so I sacrifice it, and block Karavik with the Spider token, but still take 5 from the other creatures. With my Spider dying, the Blood Artist drains me for 1. Max's second main phase then has him casting a Spiteful Visions, and he then moves the Greaves onto the Blood Artist. We then go to his end step, which has him sacrificing the Athlete. I get drained for 1 with the Blood Artist trigger, and Max then draws a card from the Blitz, losing 1. I mill my 3, and draw 2 cards because of Spiteful Visions, and also lose 2. Before leaving my draw step though, Max activates the Taunter, having it fight Karavik, and with no response, I get taken out for Xaxes. Game review time. This game was 2 hours, 15 minutes, and 43 seconds. It was long. It was longer than most of the Precon games that I've ever done, but it was super good. I think everyone got to showcase what their decks did. There was a lot of back and forth. There were some great board wipes. There was an underdog story. I think it was a really, really good example of what a precon can do when playing against other precons. Looking at them individually, Winter was awesome. I mean, yeah, I had him out super, super early, but oh, it's such a fun mechanic. I love Delirium. I love playing with the graveyard. Golgari does it really, really well. And despite the fact that there aren't cards like Dredge, which would help fill the graveyard even more, I actually didn't find I was struggling all that much to have relevant card types in the graveyard. I do think things took it up a notch as soon as I had the Whip of Erebos out, so I probably should have gotten that earlier. But overall, I thought the deck was fantastic and really, really hard to keep down. Max's deck, not Maximus's, the Valgavoth. The Valgavoth deck, it looks like an Obnixilis Captive Kingpin deck, but it plays very differently. I think the ability being limited to only on their turn is a bit slower, but overall you get a card to hand as opposed to exile, which doesn't mean you have to use it right away, so I think that's a little bit of a better trade-off. Overall, I think Max kind of dissuaded us from attacking him early on because he was so far behind, and then just had so many good cards afterwards. The Lord of Pain was just brutal, and we're basically going to release another game probably on Monday featuring that card in the command zone, and yeah, it's as good as you think it is. Otherwise, Max had a bunch of those creatures that basically ping you or drain you for life when they come in, which was just absolutely brutal. What was even crazier though was Maximus's deck. When that massacre resolved and he flipped up Eudora, my brain literally melted just from the interaction between how all of that was going to go down. I thought we were just going to have some kind of crazy infinite loop, but it wasn't as bad. But it was still bad. He ended up with like 1 billion forests, which is crazy. Overall, I think it's a really cool mechanic, and I think it works really well with like the manifest and morph enablers that we already have, and it's just really, really neat. I think being able to pick the best of the two is great, and yeah, like as you saw, there's a ton of synergy in the deck built in, and that's without the cards that are already existing out there that are really good. I think Mathieu struggled the most out of everyone in the game. Aminatou is very, very strong, and if he was able to have her out for more than 1 or 2 turns, I think he would have been able to get some decent miracles out of her. Unfortunately, she ate a lot of incidental removal. With the Vile Mutilator, the board wipes, she just got too expensive to be able to have out reliably. Other than that, I think Shark Typhoon and Sphere of Safety were creating a really great way to keep Matt alive. It's just a shame that Blood Artist was able to drain him out. My overall first impression of these decks is that they're very good. All of the initial commanders were 4-costing, which meant that no one had to really like explode or ramp to get to it, which often is like a bit difficult to do in a precon game. There is a decent amount of value, they play really well, and they seem really, really well synergized. I'm not too sure how it'll go with the other commanders, so we'll have to see how that does in Monday's game, but with the face commanders, I thought they did a fantastic job. I'm really, really happy with them. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, but it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.